Today we are unearthing one of the most overlooked prophetic details in Scripture. Not to sensationalize it, but to understand why God slowed the narrative down long enough to count months. Why 7? Why burial? And why does this detail sit at the center of one of the Bible's most dramatic end-time prophecies? To understand this, we must begin where Ezekiel began, with context. Setting the stage. Who was Ezekiel and why he matters? Ezekiel was a prophet of crisis. He lived during the 6th century BCE, a time when Israel had suffered one of the greatest traumas in its history. Jerusalem had fallen. The temple was destroyed. The people of God were dragged into exile by the Babylonian Empire. Everything that defined Israel, land, worship, identity, seemed shattered. Ezekiel himself was a priest by training, taken into exile and called by God to speak to a broken people. His book is unlike any other prophetic text. It is vivid, symbolic, unsettling, and unapologetically divine. Wheels within wheels, living creatures, dry bones rising. And in chapters 38 and 39, a massive end-time invasion led by a mysterious figure named Gog from the land of Magog. These chapters form a single prophetic unit. Ezekiel 38 describes the invasion. Ezekiel 39 describes the aftermath. And it is here, after God has already won, that the 7-month prophecy appears. That alone should rest our attention. The battle and the aftermath. Ezekiel 39 opens with God addressing Gog directly. The invader comes with a vast coalition. Persia, Cush, Put. Ancient names that echo across history. They descend upon Israel like a storm cloud, confident, armed, and overwhelming in number. But God intervenes. The defeat of Gog is not the result of Israel's military strength. It is divine judgment. Earthquakes shake the land. Fire falls. Confusion overtakes the invading armies. The mountains of Israel become a graveyard. Then comes the unexpected turn. Instead of moving immediately to restoration or celebration, God speaks of burial. I will give to Gog a place for burial in Israel, and there they will bury Gog and all his multitude. And then the detail that changes everything. For 7 months the house of Israel will be burying them in order to cleanse the land. 7 months. God does not rush past this. Neither should we. Why the land must be cleansed? In biblical theology, death defiles. The presence of corpses, especially on such a massive scale, renders the land unclean. This is not superstition, it is covenantal reality. Numbers 19 makes clear that contact with death requires purification. Numbers 35 states that bloodshed pollutes the land. The aftermath of Gog's defeat is not just military wreckage, it is spiritual contamination. So God commands a national act of cleansing. The people of Israel are not spectators in this process. Scripture says, all the people of the land take part. This is not left to priests alone, it is communal responsibility. Special workers are appointed to search the land. If they find a bone, they mark it so trained buriers can handle it properly. Nothing is ignored. Nothing is rushed. The land must be fully purified. This is not filler material in the prophecy. This is the hinge. Why 7 months? In Scripture, 7 represents completeness and divine order. Creation was completed in 7 days. Sacred festivals follow 7s. God uses this number to communicate wholeness. 7 months tells us something crucial. God's victory is thorough, but restoration takes time. Evil is defeated in a moment. Healing unfolds through obedience. This 7-month period forces Israel to live in the shadow of God's judgment. Bones are visible, signs are posted. The memory of divine intervention is unavoidable. Every day of burial reinforces a single truth. The Lord himself fought for Israel. And then Scripture makes a remarkable statement. So the house of Israel shall know that I am the Lord their God from that day and forward, This is not political awareness. This is spiritual recognition. Gog, history, symbol, or future enemy. The identity of Gog has been debated for centuries. Some connect Magog to ancient Scythian tribes. Others associate it with regions north of Israel, including parts of Anatolia. Jewish tradition treats Gog as a future enemy of God's people. Christian interpreters differ. Some see historical fulfillment, others see an end-times invasion still to come. The New Testament echoes the imagery in Revelation 20, where Gog and Magog appear again as symbols of final rebellion. But regardless of one's interpretive framework, the message of Ezekiel 39 is unmistakable. No power that rises against God ultimately stands. The 7-month burial underscores that truth in human terms. The theological meaning of the 7 months. This prophecy teaches several profound lessons. First, God's holiness matters. Victory alone does not restore purity. Obedience does. Second, restoration is communal. Healing after judgment is not passive. Everyone participates. Third, cleansing is deliberate. God does not skip the process, even when the outcome is secure. Fourth, judgment is not the end of the story. Ezekiel 39 ends with restoration, regathering, and the promise of God's Spirit poured out. The burial leads to renewal. Why this prophecy is skipped today? Modern readers are drawn to spectacle, battles, signs, timelines. But burial is uncomfortable. It is slow. It reminds us that consequences linger even after victory. Yet this is precisely why Ezekiel 39 matters now. Wars still leave bodies behind. Trauma still requires time to heal. Spiritual victory still demands obedience afterward. God does not merely defeat evil, He teaches His people how to live in the aftermath. Literal or symbolic? Some interpret the 7 months literally, a future event following a real invasion. Others see it symbolically, representing the complete removal of evil's defilement. The text itself supports both depth and detail, but whichever view one holds, the lesson remains unchanged. God does not skip the cleanup.
And neither should we. Final reflection. Ezekiel 38 shows us how God wins the war. Ezekiel 39 shows us how God restores what the war touched. The 7 months are not a footnote. They are a warning and an invitation. After judgment comes responsibility. After victory comes obedience. After chaos comes the hard work of cleansing. And Scripture reminds us, today, if you hear His voice, do not harden your hearts. The prophecy most people skip may be the one we need the most.